Hi there, my name is Liam White. I was born and raised in Dún Laoghaire in County Dublin. Went to school in the local Christian Brothers School and the Dominican convent. I went as far as technical school, and from there I left and I took up my first job, which was with Powers Whiskey Distilleries in Thomas Street. I was an office boy. I was there until I was 17, and then I worked for Lipton's in their head office doing the shop utensils and stationery. And I used to supply all the supermarket shops, Home and Colonial, bacon shops, and Lipton's supermarkets throughout the country with their price tags and all their display units and shop coats. Anyway, when I got to the age of 19, I had been in the FCÁ for about 2.5 years. I got to the age of 19, I decided I wanted to go and join the army. So myself and a friend of mine, we went on the same day on the 10th of October 1967. We went into Portobello Barracks and we enlisted. We were sworn in the morning, and we had our tea in the afternoon, and we were sent that evening by bus down to the Curragh, to McDonough Barracks, to do our basic training. And we started straight away. We were very lucky. There was a platoon forming. It had been forming for about 2 months, but just as we got there, we made up the numbers and we were able to start training straight away. And we trained from then until we passed out on the 22nd of February 1968. And we went from there back to, we were all posted to the command in which we came from. In our case, it was the Eastern Command. About 8 of us went back to Portobello Barracks, and we were hanging around waiting to be finally assigned to whatever unit we were going to. There was one fellow was going to go to Ordnance Survey, someone else was going to go to Artillery, someone else was going to go to the 5th Battalion, some to the 2nd Battalion. I was posted up to McKee Barracks Company, and for the first 6 months or so, I was an officer's orderly. I was officer's orderly to 3 different officers, and I worked in the officers' mess. And the duties of the orderly was to make sure that the officer's uniform was properly laid out each day for him to put on. If he was going to any ceremonials, you'd have to have the boots polished and the sword polished and everything ready for him. After a while then, in September 68, I went on an NCO's course in Portobello Barracks. And we were on that from September until we finished on the 21st of December. We had been down to the glen, in the snow, through the rivers, all the rest of it, doing our exercises and training. I came back then. I was working in the camp orderly room in McKee Barracks from then until I was there for when the trouble started in 1969, August 69, and we had to call fellas back from leave. We had to ring fellas that were over in Spain and over in France, get them all back, because there was general call up, and then there was the reservists all reported. We had a platoon of reservists showed up in August after the general call out. And when they arrived, some of them had what can only be described as historic uniforms. They weren't all wearing the modern day uniform we had. Some of them had forage caps. Some of them had high button-up collars on their tunics. Some of them had gaiters on their legs that went up to their knees. And they were all properly equipped. And then they said about training them, and then they had them doing various duties. McKee Barracks Company, for some reason, at that time was exempt from doing border service, although we did supply several NCOs to go up and help set up tentage in Gormanstown camp for refugees that fled across the border. and they also helped to get the wooden huts ready for occupation by the civilians. Anyway, a vacancy came up for a training corporal in the 21st Battalion FCÁ in Bray. The actual position I went for was a position in Dún Laoghaire as a training corporal, because I was from Dún Laoghaire and that's where I was living at the time. I was newly married and we were hoping to use the FCA allowances towards buying a house and what have you. Of course, I was posted not to Dún Laoghaire but down to Wicklow, which was twice as far away from home as I was from working in Dublin. And I was there for another 2 years, during which time I went to Cyprus. I went to Cyprus in 1971, March 71, and we came back in October. We were based out in a place called Ziggy, which was on the southeast coast of Cyprus. We did just the normal duties out there, the peacekeeping duties, keeping the Greeks and the Turks separated. There was one stage where we were actually, there was a general alarm went out. The Greeks had called up their reserves and they never informed the UN. So there was a rising of tensions, and the Turks became very anxious and they got all their weapons and everything ready and started moving troops all over the island. It got to the stage where the standing order was for us that in the event of hostilities breaking out, we would head to Akrotiri, the British airbase, and we would be flown from there out. And our troops were actually sitting in the trucks with the engines running, waiting for the off. That's how close it came, and the situation was resolved very quickly. That went on for about a week, that kind of tension. But we were never in any danger, of course, at any stage. It was a great experience to work out there because you were working with different nationalities and got to meet them all and see how they did things. We came back from Cyprus in October, and I came back in October. I went to the border in 1971 as well. In December, the 17th of December, we were confined to the barracks in Dundalk with the 1st Infantry Company group, it was called. And the order went out that they had received word that someone was going to be taken hostage, and it would be either an officer or an NCO. So we all had to take down our rank markings. And then the CO called everyone together and said, if anyone is taken prisoner, the order is as follows. He said, if I'm taken prisoner, you shoot the guy that's holding me hostage. Or shoot me, and then you shoot the guy that's holding me hostage. And he said, the same thing will happen if you're taken. So we weren't allowed outside the barracks for the 3 weeks. We were on high alert, and there was a lot of call-outs. We had to go out to various things. Just after Christmas, of course, in January, you had the killing of the people in Derry, 1972. That was, again, it was a heightened period because a crowd came to the barracks and demanded weapons. And, of course, they were told where to go, but they weren't very happy about that. So then there was all sorts of threats made to us, and half the time we were told if you go out for a pint in the evening time, you'd be attacked and all this kind of thing. But we put up with it and we carried on. We did get call outs to Dungoody, Crossroads. There was a shootout one time between the British patrol had come down, and the IRA had opened up on them. They were firing at them for about 2 hours while we were in the background, held off. The guards, you see, we were only in aid to the civil power. The guards were in control, and we were sitting there waiting. And then the shooting stopped, and we heard the engines of the car starting up, and the officer asked the guards, what will we do? And they said, we want to stop them all. So we put the army car across the road and we had lads around positioned with the weapons. And when they came round the corner, they stopped and they came up to us and they said, "You're worse than the British for harassing us," and all sorts of things. But the guards took their name and address and let them off. And then about an hour or so after that, we were back in barracks and we were told, we're going up to dig up the weapons. So the guards and ourselves went up and we dug up the weapons, and the weapons were still hot from all the shooting. And the problem with most of them was that they had the wrong size ammunition, and a lot of them were jammed, and that's why they had to stop firing. But all the weapons were brought back to the police station in Dundalk, and that was okay. We went back to the barracks, and then later on that evening we were told we had to go up and take the weapons out of the barracks and the Garda barracks in Dundalk and bring them back to hold them in the barracks, the army barracks, because they were afraid the IRA would try to break in during the night and get the weapons back. So we were on there. During the course of that, of course, I had done guard duty, a 24-hour guard duty. Was resting off from that, and the general alarm went off because there was a robbery on the labour exchange in Drogheda. And I said, sure, I won't be sent out because I'm resting off, as I thought. When I went over to the armoury, I was given a weapon and I was sent out onto the Newry Bridge. And I was on the Newry Bridge from 9:30 in the morning until 8 o'clock that evening, with no relief, nothing to eat. We didn't even get a toilet break. I had to make my own arrangements with the lads. I had to get them to try and get them into one of the local pubs. We were there with the guards. I mean, we had to stop cars going up and down the road. I went from that, I went back to the barracks. I had been out of bed at that stage for 3 nights. I was coming up to the 4th night, and I had a pain in my left shoulder. And I just said to the medic, "Will you put some wintergreen on that?" And he did. And then I was sitting down watching television, and the next I just keeled over. And when I woke up, there was a civilian doctor there, and he said to me, "You're suffering with exhaustion." He gave me a tablet, and that was on a Friday evening, and I didn't wake up until Tuesday morning. I can tell you I was sore. I ached everywhere. Then I was supposed to have been relieved on that particular day, that Friday. My relief didn't come up until the following Thursday. So when I was relieved, I went back to the 21st Battalion, and I was there for another 6 months, and during which time the trouble started. The 6-day war started in Sinai Desert, and they were looking for volunteers to go out, so I volunteered to go. We did our training in Gormanstown, forming up and all the rest of it. We got equipped, but we weren't fully equipped. We didn't even have blueberries going out. Sometimes some lads had blueberries with no badges. Some of them had no blueberries, so we were all told to wear our national dress going out just to the Sinai. You can imagine the heat, wearing a bull's wool going out into the Sinai Desert. When we got to Tel Aviv airport, then we had to fill in more forms than were anticipated, so we were another 3 hours waiting to get through the airport. We eventually got through, and we travelled by bus, civilian bus, brought us from Tel Aviv to a place called El Nagila. It was an 8-hour drive, and we wound up in the middle of a desert. And when I say a desert, I mean there was literally nothing. There wasn't a blade of grass. There was nothing. There was an old steam train that had been used by somebody for target practice. There was about 1,000 rounds gone through it. And it was an old railway station in the middle of the desert. And we were there living under canvas for a couple of weeks. It was horrendously hot. Really was. It was 112 at one stage. The chaplain had taken it in the tent, taken the temperature. It was 112, and that was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We'd run out of water several times because we were dependent on a water truck going through the Israeli lines to get fresh water. And several times we ran out and we would just have to make do with whatever. We had to drink the Coca-Cola or lemonade or Coke or beer or anything we could get our hands on just to keep ourselves hydrated. We were supposed to be drinking in the region of 8 to 9 litres a day. We did that anyway, and then the bombings happened here in Ireland, in Dublin, and this was 1974. I was on operations duty that night when messages went back and forth to see whether anyone that was serving in the Sinai Desert had any relatives that had casualties. And it was 2 o'clock in the morning before we finally got the all clear that no one was involved. So that was on a Friday evening. I was again on duty on Saturday night. And the message came in to say that we were going to be repatriated. It was the government's knee-jerk, I suppose, to the situation. Nobody was happy that we were being recalled because we didn't see that we were going to make any big difference back here where we were making a difference out there. We started on Sunday morning. We got the final details and we were told what time the aircraft was leaving at and what we were to bring back with us, and the rear party was to be organised to stay behind and clean up the area, and we had to hand over to the Nepalese battalion. We left on Tuesday evening. We left at about 10:30 at night, and we had to drive all the way back up to Tel Aviv, and we got there at about 5:30 or 6 in the morning. The Israelis then decided they weren't going to let us into the terminal with our weapons. So we were all stuck out on the tarmac beside the plane, and there had been a mix-up in the timings for the plane. The plane had been parked. We were there 5 hours early, so we had to spend that 5 hours lying on the tarmac. And the Israelis kept coming over to us every few minutes to make sure that we hadn't moved, and they were pointing weapons at us and all sorts of things. So we eventually got back to Dublin, and the Chief of Staff was Major General T.L. O'Carroll was the Chief of Staff at the time, and he was visibly upset over the fact that we were being withdrawn. He said it wasn't his idea, but that the situation was such that it was deemed necessary to bring us back. Most of the guys were sent to the border, but because I had been promoted in the meantime and was a sergeant in Army Headquarters, again attached to McKee Barracks Company, we were still exempt from the border service. So I didn't do any border service at that time. All the other guys did. A lot of them from Donegal and that, or a lot of them went to Donegal, and some of them went to Cavan, some of them went to Dundalk. And at that stage, they started to form the permanent 27 to 28 battalions, and that was in 74. So then I worked in on Cossentor for over 2 years, and it was interesting. I did a bit of editing on the magazine and did the circulation and stuff like that. And then I was working in clerical duties in Army Headquarters after that. So right up until 1989, I got the opportunity of a civilian job in Molesworth Street in Dublin, and I left the army. I left the army in December. I took pre-discharge leave, and then I had annual leave as well. So it was March 89 when I left. I had finished my 21, so I was fairly okay that way. But I was at the rank of company sergeant. I wasn't going to go any further, so I felt I had my time done. So that's it.